Hello and welcome to Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster and I am the host of the program. And I enjoy bringing interesting people from Stoughton to your attention each and every time I'm on air. And that's no different this morning. I have one of the candidates for the select board uh, who is looking for your support and vote on Tuesday, the 22nd of June. And that is my friend, Mark Zamanian, who I know amongst many things that he has done in the town of Stoughton, one of which he serves as a member of the Stoughton Redevelopment Authority. But rather than my doing all of the gloating and information about Mark, I'm going to let him do that himself. So first I want to do is Mark, welcome to Community Forum.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Roy, for having this today. It's always a pleasure, even though it's virtual, to see you today, Joe. And I appreciate your commitment to our local politics and your recognition of the importance of races like this.
Yep, well, it is, but I have to give all the credit to Roy. He woke me up and said, "Hey, are you going to do the candidates for select board?" I know I saw you once again because of your involvement on the meeting last week that they had as far as the zoning in the center of Stoughton.
Yep.
And your commitments and comments and that. So why don't we do this? I like to have, even though I know everyone may know Mark Zamanian, why don't we start out, tell folks a little bit about you in the sense of one, family, education, if you like, this type of service that you've given to the town of Stoughton. Why don't you get people to know you on a personal basis, Mark? And then also you can talk about why you're running for select board.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. So my family and I moved here in late 2004. I've been married 31 years to my lovely wife, Pam, who takes a back seat to local politics, but is definitely my better half when it comes to it, and definitely reminds me of the focus of politics. She often brings me around to the recognition that, hey, it's not about you, buddy. It's about the residents, and stick to that focus. So it's really, happily married for 31 years. We have 4 children, 3 of which are daughters. So bathroom time in my house can be an interesting factor. At least for us
you
boys.
You get some, you're lucky.
Yeah, you got to get up really early to get there first. So we own a modest ranch here on Low Avenue in Stoughton, 3-bedroom home. 2 of our children are adult children, and 2 are 11 and 10 years old. So it's really wonderful to have sort of almost 2 separate families in a weird sense. Let's see, I'm a tradesman. I work here in town as a contractor and a consultant, working on sustainability and senior housing. I've been involved in town politics since about 2014. I started as a town meeting representative, and actually kind of got interested in politics through a friend of mine, John Anzavino, who was select board member at the time. I was working at his house and saw his commitment to the town at that time when he was serving, and really found it inspiring. I had been involved in local politics in Quincy, which is where we came from under Mayor Phelan at the time, and just really saw this as an opportunity to help the Stoughton residents. I'm a firm believer in politics and local political government as being more of a civic duty and less of anything else. So I serve the people because I choose to, and I feel that I have a responsibility to do that. 2 years ago, I was elected to the Redevelopment Authority and appointed to the CPC, which is the Community Preservation Committee. I have served with honor on those 2 boards, and really appreciate the residents' trust in me for those positions, for particularly the elected position, which they put me into place 2 years ago. I am chairing currently the Housing Trust Subcommittee that the CPC, in conjunction with the Select Board, set up in reaction to the pandemic. We, as chair, my committee has, in a very short period of time, Joe, for municipal work, it's lightning speed, but we took 12 days to put together a comprehensive plan offering rental assistance and homeowner assistance to folks affected by the COVID-19. Rarely do you get accolades from any other committee, but that was done largely in conjunction because we had a member of the select board with us. We had 3 members from the CPC, and we had a citizen member. We all had and shared the same goal, which was to provide assistance for our residents. We felt very strongly that the residents would find themselves in trouble due to the pandemic, to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we really wanted to react to that. The CPC fully supported this, even giving us out their program administrator to assist us with writing bylaws and policies. And it was quite a feat, but we had an incredibly diverse yet focused group of people. And 12 days with 2 lawyers on the board. And being a lawyer, you know that's not an easy task, but I'm very proud of that program. It has helped approximately 50 families as of right now, and that number still continues to grow today. Additionally to that, we went for a supplemental package at this year's annual town meeting, because if we continued to spend the money the way we would have found ourselves running out of money somewhere between August and October. We didn't want disruption in the program, so felt it would be prudent to request a supplemental $250,000. And it's money we can return to the CPC. That did pass unanimously at town meeting. Not unanimously, I shouldn't say that, but it passed by a large margin, a comfortable 2/3 margin. And the other aspect of it, which I am thrilled about, is we were able to find $400,000 from the state through an IRMA program, which is an emergency program that they run. And that was available to any resident who was affected by the COVID, regardless of their financial situation.
Well, certainly, I have a series of questions, and I wanted you to talk about that because I've observed your leadership during that time since 2014. I can remember, I was a town meeting representative at some point in time, and your comments on the floor were usually cogent, succinct, and received a favorable vote versus many others who get up there and speak for hours and they get 2 votes out of it. So it's clear that your points were very poignant. What I want to talk about and commend you in your housing trust under the CPC with regards to getting those monies for COVID relief, because COVID has been center stage for the past 2 years. But I'm also appreciative of your comment about going to the state, because one of the failings that I've seen with regards to how we've administered things here in town has been our lack of interaction with our state legislators as well as with state government, and there's money out there. Now, I know I say that there has been a change with the current administration under Grimm and also with our town engineer of going out and seeking monies on the state level. Talk about that aspect, and particularly in light of your wanting to go become a select board member, because that's one of the places beside the town manager where that interaction would take place. Talk about what your thinking is on that, Mark, and in that response, talk to why you want to be a select board member.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. As far as that, when I will say, I remember, I believe it was 2015. I do remember you were serving as a town meeting representative, and there was a particularly difficult article that had come up. And it was you who had come to the floor and say, I want to remind everybody, this is about an overlay, about zoning. It's not about housing. It's not about anything else. We should be voting and looking at zoning and zoning alone. And I remember that because I happened to be against that project, and it doesn't matter how you stood on it. But what I remember specifically was that you were able to ground that conversation. Now, at the time, the developer opened the door for a more impassioned argument, but I always had an appreciation for that coming from you. I try and emulate that myself. We really want to stick to what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So it's more about the factual aspect and less the emotional aspect. Now, we know emotions get involved in it, Joe. We both have seen it, witnessed it, and participated in it. So there's no harm in that emotion. We're fighting for what we've been tasked to do, which is protect our residents and ensure that the residents get the best possible results with their tax money. With that said, when we created the COVID program, one of my concerns was that the CPC funds, which is primarily the funding source for this, can only be spent on rental or home ownership with deed restriction. And what that means is that if you say you don't have a deed restriction on your home, or I don't have one on mine, if I lost my job due to the COVID, I wouldn't qualify for that. We wanted as an inclusive a system or policy as humanly possible. Now, I couldn't do that from the perspective of the CPC because the CPC state statute limits how we spend our money. However, we thought to ourselves, hey, there's got to be money somewhere else. So we simply started to look, and the state converted the community development block grants and added onto it a COVID relief aspect. So that allowed the state to channel much needed funds to any resident. And they didn't put the requirements on it that the CPC funds had. So in many ways, I felt like that was a firm handshake from the state that recognized not only what the efforts we were making, but also wanted to match those efforts in any way they could. They understood the limitations of CPC funding, which is where a lot of the COVID assistance came from. And I was really impressed with the way they handled that. For our town, $400,000 is quite a bit of money. It nearly matched what we dedicated to the program ourselves initially. Essentially, you're talking about bringing $1.1 million to the town in aid during a crisis. And I just want to give a quick mention about the Stoughton Housing Authority. Colleen Doherty, the housing director, works for Stoughton and Taunton, really stepped up in this process. She voluntarily agreed to and willingly agreed to administer the program. So that did a couple of things for us. It brought the cost of this program down to virtually nothing. We had set aside $10,000 additional dollars for administrative costs. She hasn't even charged us for that yet. And she doesn't anticipate having any real investment because they're already doing the job. They're working with the people who need that help to begin with. There was great access and there was a good infrastructure in place. The program that we ended up setting up through Colleen and the interagency agreement with the town ended up being the least expensive administratively program in Massachusetts. Nobody was able to do it cheaper. The average program was costing 17 to 19% of the overall gross dollars to administer. We paid zero.
Well, see, what that points out to me, and this gets to again, this was one of my pet concerns when I was the interim town manager,
Yep.
was the coordination of the different bodies that could be helpful, be it Housing Authority, Stoughton Redevelopment Authority, and the town.
Yep.
And to hear that that's come to fruition with the type of leadership that you brought to the conversation, Mark, is very heartening. Because these are some of the things that, there are different town meeting representatives at various times, and I won't mention all of them by name, who I always say, I may not agree with them on issues, but they say we plan all the time and it gets shelved and we don't move anything forward. Well, it's very gratiating for me and gratifying for me to hear that some of these things are happening, because I don't think we've ever in the past done some coordination with the Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority, having run one myself in Boston, has a lot of a capability for the town in terms of accessing dollars, which we leave on the table.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Joe, I think when I ran in 2019, this is one of the things I talked about, transparency commitment and accountability. All of that only happens if there's communication. So if there's no communication, and I'll give you a great example. The urban renewal plan was put forth back in 14, I believe they started the process, and it ended up dying in 2016. And that happened for one reason, I believe, and one reason only. There was zero communication between the select board, the planning board, and the redevelopment authority. If I'm being honest, and we're doing our jobs the way they're meant to be done, this is about Stoughton. So every town meeting representative, every elected official, and every volunteer, I truly believe we're all on the same page on one thing. We want what's best for Stoughton. I think it's the pathways we take to get there that vary quite a bit, but our focus is still the same. So you and I haven't agreed on everything, but you and I respect each other. I respect your opinions. I don't have to agree with them, and you don't have to agree with mine to realize there needs to be A, respect, and B, communication. And I can remember a woman came to me. She was looking for a seat at a meeting, and the one next to me was empty. And she looked at me, and I pointed to the seat, and she came over and she says, "Okay for me to sit here?" I says, "Of course it is." And she says, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "Of course I do." And she says, "Then you know I fought you on this other thing." And I said, "Yeah, I know that, but you need a seat, right?" And she says, "Well, yeah." And I says, "Okay, I'm not going to bite you, I promise." You know, that person's viewpoints I disagreed with, but we respected each other enough to understand that we still have to work together as a town. And the end results are irrelevant as long as we all strove to do the right thing for Stoughton and its residents.
Well, I learned this from my good friend, Lenny Zaker, who was the head of the ADL, for whom the bridge is named after. We were colleagues together. We coined this: we can agree to disagree, but not be disagreeable.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And in that way, you can, and you have a greater interest that you're concerned about. It has been disheartening not to see. I thought the SRA in the town had gotten the urban renewal in, because we were talking about that on how we may look at doing things in town, dealing with things in terms of housing, and even dealing with the issue of what to do with the post office. So it's just, I thought that it had been enacted, Mark. So it was a little disheartening to have you say that it died on the vine.
It did, but if I might, Joe, last year, just before the pandemic, actually, the SRA agreed to move that urban renewal plan forward and complete it. Myself and Reggie Nunnally sort of became the initial point men as far as discussion on it. Every member has been intimately involved with the process. However, we have had clear and concise conversations and communication with the planning board and with the select board. We did retain BSC Consulting, who was in the process of finishing that. And we're actually at a point now where we're waiting for the zoning to be finished. One of the primary reasons we were able to do that is because we focused on the problems that this had before, and that was the lack of communication. So it wasn't that the urban renewal plan was not good for Stoughton or improperly written by the prior consultant. It was simply a lack of communication between the select board, the planning board, and the redevelopment authority. And we made it our goal, Reggie and myself, you know Reggie Nunnally very well. We made it our priority to ensure that communication was of utmost importance between the three boards, which are the important ones for this.
Well, Mark, you and I could go on for hours, and I only have about 7 minutes left in this. So I want, and this definitely has put in context what leadership you bring to the issue, the passion you bring to the issue, the ability to recognize that there has to be that type of transparency and type of communication. But let's focus specifically on, you're now trying to step into the position of a select board member. You didn't run when in the election. This is a special election. You decided to enter it, and you have one opponent for this position that's available, because the chair has had to resign because she's leaving the area. Talk to our viewing audience as to why they should support Mark Zamanian for this position, and any of your planks that you are bringing as far as the issues that you would try to shepherd through in your position as select board member. We'll have about 5 or so minutes, and I'm just going to sit back and listen to you because I'm a voter too. Convince me.
Okay, Joe, thank you. So I'm essentially running on a very similar platform that I did at the Redevelopment Authority. The issues are very different, but the basis of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it will be much the same. It will be handled in much the same manner. We are in a situation financially, and I don't want to get into the weeds about it, but we have to do a better job learning how to spend the taxpayers' money wisely, putting money aside. I mean, in my personal financial life, I don't just go out and buy things without any understanding as to how I'm going to pay for them. And we as a town shouldn't either. I think the taxpayers expect a level of conscious and thoughtful decision-making when it comes to purchasing things. I don't blame town meeting representatives for this at all. This is something that is a fundamental policy that should probably be shifted a hair when it comes to every time there's a penny on the table, we want to grab it and use it. The way around that is, instead of saying, what do you need? Instead, say to the departments, here's what you have. What can you do with it? And then furthermore, where are the shortfalls? And then between the select board, who presents and inserts the budget, the town manager, and the finance committee, we need to make thoughtful decisions as to where our priorities are. We've known this fire station has been needed for many, many years, and we simply didn't bother to put any money down on it. That kills me. You know, we need a South School. Okay, the police department, we actually bought a storage container this year for the police department. That's ludicrous. We shouldn't be doing that. So we know we have some larger infrastructure projects coming. We've got 3 to 5 years with negotiations of MSBA and part of that process before the pedal meets the metal, so to speak, and we have to go. Why can't we set some money aside for that? Debt falls off every year. Instead of gobbling up that debt internally.
And just to help our viewing audience, you talk about the school authority with regard MSBA.
Yeah.
We government speak, we know what it is, but I want to make sure our viewing audience was up to speed with you and me, Mark.
Yeah, no, it's the government authority that assists towns in paying for new schools.
Right.
They give tremendous grant money, upwards sometimes of half of what is needed. And I give Joyce Husseini and Dr. Marcus and the school committee themselves a lot of credit. They're looking at things from outside the box a little bit. They're saying, hey, instead of building the South School and then worrying about the next 4, they're saying, what if we combined 2 schools? So it lessens the burden on the taxpayer, but it also, this process is giving us an opportunity to put some money aside for it. So, it's 20 million, but the government authority is going to give us 10, and we got 3 all of a sudden because we were intelligent about our spending and set a little money aside for the project. Fire station is clearly number 1 and can be number 1 right now because it's immediate. We have a little time on the school because of the pressure and the delay that is naturally built in with the process of designing and building a school. And we've given the money to set aside for the feasibility aspect of it. So that's there and ready to go. My concern with the fire station, and I will give the select board, the recent select board, some credit. They, I'm sure controversially, but they've taken over the process of finding a site. We can no longer wait for guesstimates and wonders and RFPs. We need a site today for the fire station. And if I get elected, I'm going to have to hit the ground running on that. Now, we have a beautiful design, but we have no place to put it. So we're going to have to very quickly take a look at where we put this building and how it's going to be built. Do we reuse the Freeman Street site? Do we find another one close? Those are going to be the tough questions that are going to have to be answered so that the work can get done immediately.
Well, they're going to have to hear from you on another program or as you campaign out there, because I think my time is about to elapse. But Mark, I want to wish you the best. I want to certainly, want to thank Roy and Rob and those behind the scenes who make this program possible. Good luck on the 22nd. I want to remind our viewing audience that's Tuesday, June 22nd for the special election. Let's try and get out there. We had such, in my view, a deplorable turnout for the general election. So let's show Stoughton strength in this particular one here. So Mark, good luck to you. Best to the family. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks to Community Forum for doing this today.